Hey Guardians, Crispy Bacon here, and today's video is all about the Prometheus Lens. With the start of the Season of the Forge, Bungie has actually buffed the damage of the lens by 10%. This was seemingly an attempt to get it more in line with the other trace rifles, the Cold Heart and the Wave Splitter. Before this buff, it kind of wasn't the most competitive when it came to both PvE and PvP content, so in this video I wanted to take a look and see where it stands in comparison to the other trace rifles, but also where it sits within the sandbox as a whole. So let's get to it. If you already understand how trace rifles work and what the Prometheus Lens does, feel free to check the description to see some timestamps for when I actually review the gun and when I give my final verdict too. So the first thing I wanted to do was kind of go over how trace rifles function in the current game. They're all exotics. There are only 3 of them, that being the Prometheus Lens, the Cold Heart, and the Wave Splitter. They all are stationed in the secondary slot, so the second slot of the 3, also known as the special slot, and they all actually use special ammo. So the same ammo that would be going towards a shotgun, or a fusion rifle, or a sniper rifle. The other thing I wanted to mention is that trace rifles and auto rifles are somewhat overlapping weapon archetypes. By that I mean that there are a handful of armor perks that affect both weapon types, and they can also be infused into one another. One standout feature of trace rifles, however, when compared to auto rifles, is that they actually have 100% inner accuracy. The laser can't really move or be inaccurate. It always stays completely straight shooting out from the gun, which means that you can jump in the air and shoot down at an opponent and have 100% inner accuracy, which is very apparent on PC, not quite as much on console. As for the Prometheus Lens specifically, though, there are a few things that make it stand out from the other trace rifles. The first being that while you're shooting enemies with the Prometheus Lens, if you score a kill, it will reload the entirety of your magazine from reserves. In addition, when you're firing the lens at the other end of the laser, it kind of creates this growing ball of fire the longer you are holding down the trigger, and this kind of growing ball makes this AoE damage over time effect that can hurt multiple targets if they're in close proximity. So with all the basics out of the way, how is the lens? Well, that answer is a bit more complicated than it seems. It involves more than just the performance of the gun itself. With the Forsaken DLC, the Destiny sandbox was changed in a few pretty big ways. Shotgun snipers and fusion rifles moved into the special slot and now require special ammo to use instead of heavy ammo. And at the same time, trace rifles went from requiring primary ammo to now using special ammo. Outright, this seems like a huge nerf to trace rifles and thus the Prometheus Lens, and it kind of is. That being said though, with the expansion, trace rifles became a decent amount stronger too. Time to kill for Cold Heart and Prometheus Lens jumped pretty high, and this made them competitive when compared to other top tier weapons. So on the surface, Prometheus Lens seemed much stronger than it was before, but with that increase in power, the requirement of needing special ammo is also pretty apparent in practice. It all comes down to the special ammo economy. In PvE, finding special ammo really isn't that hard, and in my opinion the Prometheus Lens is actually a pretty decent choice here. It shines the most when engaging a large amount of trash mobs because of its ability to reload after each kill, and that Prismatic Inferno perk, which makes the growing ball of flame that burns enemies around your initial target. In my opinion though, Prismatic Inferno should do much more damage than it currently does. Against anything that's not a Thrall or an extremely low health enemy, the extra damage from Prismatic Inferno is really easy to miss. The extra 10% that came with Season of the Forge isn't too noticeable to me, but it's there. In the right scenarios, the lens is still pretty good, and the buff is definitely welcome, but I think the Prismatic Inferno damage could definitely be a lot higher. Where the issues start cropping up is when we take it into PvP. So back to that whole special ammo economy thing. When you use the Prometheus Lens in PvP, you spawn with 50 ammo in the magazine. This is enough to get 1, maybe 2 kills before running out of ammo, which is pretty standard across all other weapons requiring special ammo anyway. However, when it comes to picking up ammo off the floor from other enemies, it's not uncommon to only pick up 5 to 20 ammo at a time, which at the lower end is barely enough to do any damage to an enemy. So with that in mind, a player would either have to use the small amount of ammo left and then swap to another weapon mid-battle, or just put it away until more special ammo is found. This leads to, outside of the first 1 or 2 engagements, always feeling like you need ammo. The same can't be said for shotguns, fusion rifles, and snipers, where even one bullet is all you need to get the job done, providing you with an almost instant kill if you use it properly. I'd say that the benefits of a trace rifle is that they perform relatively well across a handful of different distances and scenarios. That being said though, they definitely do not outperform other primaries in an extremely meaningful way. Any player using Bygones, Luna's Howl, Redrick's Broadsword, and Trust can easily compete against trace rifles, and those weapons are both legendary weapons and only require kinetic ammo. The fact that Prometheus Lens can be outdueled by other primaries, requires special ammo, and takes up your exotic slot makes it a pass for me in PvP. The only ways I can see the Prometheus Lens being a competitive option is for trace rifles to only require kinetic ammo, which would mean that things like the Wave Splitter would be extremely powerful in their current state, or for Prometheus Lens to do more damage, both in its regular laser and with its Prismatic Inferno perk. And the other fix that I could see helping the situation out a bit is if when picking up special ammo while using a trace rifle, the amount of ammo you pick up is a bit more consistent and maybe a bit more generous. If we were able to use trace rifles much more commonly in PvP, instead of just getting 1 or 2 kills and then having to swap to another weapon, I could see all trace rifles, including the Prometheus Lens, getting a pretty decent competitive advantage and also warranting their exotic slot. So yeah, that about wraps it up. The 10% damage buff didn't quite bring Prometheus Lens into the state that I would like it in, but I think with maybe a few more changes, Bungie could make Prometheus Lens and all of the trace rifles a much more common choice for your average player in the PvP sandbox. But hope you guys enjoyed the video, and feel free to comment below. Let's talk about it. Have a good one.